Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. I am Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, who is affectionately known as Coach. And Coach, you're looking better today. You're feeling better. This is exciting because we got 11 game slate, so we need you at your best.
Man, I'll tell you what, like I said yesterday, and I'll just repeat it. I mean, you take things for granted, and feeling strong, feeling well is certainly one of them. But man, I am feeling much stronger today, and hopefully it gets better each day. And I'm excited for this slate. I've been looking at it since yesterday. Lots of interesting scenarios here, so can't wait to break it all down with you.
Absolutely. And we are going to zoom through it because it's an 11 game slate. We're getting started a little bit later than usual today. We're starting to work on setting up our live stream. So we hope to have that ready for you for the Thursday NBA slate. So stay
Yeah.
tuned for that. But in the meantime, just the classic old YouTube recording here. So we'll get it posted for you so you can listen before lock. All right, Coach. Let's get after it here. 11 games. Let's start with Houston and Indiana. Um, so Harden and Wall, that's the big question here. We got a
Right.
little bit of a potential bump in usage with Ben McLemore out and Daniel House out. So, with Gordon, Harden, and Wall, those are the three guys I'm looking at. And then Christian Wood is questionable. So if
Right.
he's out last minute, then all of a sudden DeMarcus Cousins becomes very important. No big news on the Indiana side in terms of injuries. So what do you think about game one here?
Well, I mean, we really need that news on Wood. I mean, that becomes. I really think if Wood's out, I mean, Cousins becomes a very, very strong play for me, just because he got tossed out of that last game. He's rested, he's ready to go. This is a good matchup for him, and he'll get a boatload of minutes, probably all he can eat, pretty much with Wood. If Wood's out, if Wood's in, it certainly changes the dynamics a bit there. And, at that point, you can consider a Wall or Harden if you want to pay up. Um, you know, uh, with so many choices today, though, you can be a little bit pickier and get a little bit better value with some of the guys. But, if for me, we'll again stay with us on Discord and on Twitter because we'll be following this right up until lock. But if Wood's out, I'm really considering Cousins. And if not, then probably take a look at the Waller Harden play. I don't think you really need to go deeper than that at this point. I know Eric Gordon's coming off a good game and such, but again, Indiana's a decent defensive team. Their pace is a little slower, and this isn't really the most conducive game for Houston. But if they are shorthanded at the big, then you got to consider it without question. And I'll just jump right into Indiana and then let you surmise the whole game. I'm a monster Sabonis guy. He's just playing such great basketball right now. And even if Wood's not 100%, and they're going to try to guard Sabonis with Tucker and different, setups like that. I think Sabonis is one of my favorite buy-ups. I know he's extremely expensive, but I like the pace of play. Although Houston, with Wall out there, it just changes every game with them. But they will probably push it a bit. I think Sabonis is majorly in play, as well as Malcolm Brogdon. He has been so efficient and strong as a player. Again, his price has gone up some, but those are the two guys that I'm zoning in on Indiana. I'd love to go. If I'm hoping Wood's out, because I'd love to come out of this game with Brogdon, Sabonis, and Cousins if possible.
Yeah, that would make sense. I agree with you. Cousins is in play. If Wood is out, you got to ignore the fantasy point average because of that ejection in the last game. I did
Sure.
notice with Wall and Harden in that game, I was really surprised. There were a lot of possessions where Wall was handling the ball, not even looking at Harden. So
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to pay 11,000 for Harden right now with Wall in there. And I do like Wall's price on DraftKings at only 7,400, so that's in play for me. On the Indiana side, I'm with you. Sabonis, I think this is a strong game for him. He's cheaper on FanDuel, which is nice. And
Right.
Brogdon can certainly get in the paint and get a lot of damage done, just like Luka, who went off against them in the last game. So those are the guys I'm looking at. Oladipo would be a GPP play for me. Game 2, we've got Cleveland and Orlando. Another 7 o'clock tip here. And big injury news continues with Cleveland. Garland is out. Porter Jr., Dante Exum now out. Dellavedova. Love is still out. The one guy who's coming back tonight is Okoro. So that should impact Chetty Osman. He had a really nice game last time out. 18, 7, and 7. He was on our clipboard at 5,000. But a little bit different story with Okoro in there. And this is a rematch of Monday. Orlando won that one easily, 103-83. And that's really what we would probably expect in terms of a score in a game like this. Both teams are top 10 in defensive efficiency, so I'm really not excited about this game.
Right.
I will say on the Orlando side, we do have news there as well, as Evan Fournier is questionable. He's been out, and James Ennis is now back in. So that takes away a lot of the value. Terrence Ross has been attractive, but he's a little pricey now if both of those guys are playing. Michael Carter-Williams is out. So it kind of balances out in terms of the wings and the guards. So in terms of an actual play, for me, it's probably only Aaron Gordon, who's right on that price where it's a possibility due to his limited minutes. He did play 28 minutes last game. Nice double-double, so he could make the lineup. Vucevic I think is a nice cash play. He's still in the 8K range, so I think you could look at that. But not much here for me. How about you?
Well, it's definitely not a conducive game. The total, the defensive numbers, et cetera, definitely a game to steer from. I really like one particular player in this game that I'm strongly considering, and that's Colin Sexton. Just from a usage standpoint, with all of these guys out, I just think he stands out, like a sore thumb. And it's just a guy that, you've got to consider. His price is fair enough. He's going to get up a lot of shots. Cleveland's been a weird team this year. They've all of a sudden decided they're going to play JaVale McGee a lot as in sort of split time with Drummond a lot at center, which just sort of mind bending. But that no way I'm paying up for Drummond if McGee's going to soak some of that time. Chetty Osman, yes, he was a great play last time. To me, he just gets blown right out of the water with Okoro back because he's going to lose half of that usage. I mean, literally just gets slashed in half. And then after that, they're just all of their guards are hurt. And even from the defensive side, we tried to sort of push in some Orlando guards last time to take advantage of that Cleveland backcourt. But, I may have mentioned it on that last show too. You really don't have to do that because it's a different scenario with Cleveland's backcourt. The basis of stacking against the Cleveland backcourt was based on the terrible defensive efficiency from the three-headed guards they had of Garland, Porter, and Sexton, and two of those guys are out. So it's a different scenario completely. So other than Sexton on that side of the ball, I really don't have any interest. And because of the pace of the game, the potential of a blowout, the potential of just, low possessions, I just don't want to pay up for Gordon and Vuk when you have 22 teams on the board. So Markelle Fultz is a bit tempting, but, Cole Anthony's taken a bigger role. Terrence Ross has been somewhat hot lately. And, Fultz would be the guy if, you're looking for a sneaky play that could put up really solid 7X, maybe even 8X number. But after that, I think this game is not one to focus on.
Okay. Game 3, Coach, the Wizards and Philadelphia. This is the first game on the slate that has a total over 230 on
Right.
BetUS, our presenting sponsor. There are 3 on the slate. This one's at 232.5. Philly favored by 6.5. But Philly, number one defensive team in the league in terms of efficiency. So will you have any exposure to this one?
This is a really interesting game. I'll tell you what, Philly's defense, and we talked about this early and predicted it early because, with Simmons back, he's a potential first team all defensive player. Adding Danny Green, like we said, that hurt LA, but his perimeter defense is still, very high level. Tobias Harris, they showed his statistics, his true numbers, offense, defense. He's really playing ball this year. Fantastic. I think Embiid, other than Anthony Davis, is one of the two best defensive centers in the league. So, do you want to focus on teams against Philly because of the defensive side? And, it makes it tough. But I think that if you want to use both sides of this game, which it is a nice over-under total, Washington's going to give Philly a lot more possessions, and that's tempting to me. Right now, I have, and I know it may not be popular because of the pricing, but I've still considered Joel Embiid as a really strong play here. I think the extra possessions, his dominance inside, this is one of those, I think like 26-16 kind of games with some blocks and steals. And, again, it's hard to pay up when you have this many options. But I think Embiid has to be in consideration. Tobias Harris's salary is a little higher than I'd like, but he certainly has been paying his number. And on the Washington side of the ball, again, Philly's defense is locked down. I'm not going to go inside with any of their bigs. But, do you consider Bradley Beal or Russell Westbrook in this scenario? That's the question. And how much did they take away from each other enough, to hurt that pay up price? So as much as I like Beal, I like Westbrook, and I like the total of this game, I just don't think I feel confident enough that, Westbrook is going to outscore Beal or vice versa in this scenario. So even though I'd like to have more exposure here, I haven't figured out financially how to squeeze some of these guys in there. But as of right now, my takeaway from this game is Joel Embiid, and I'm going to try to make him work as my pay up big tonight.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. He was great against these guys in the first game of the regular season.
Right.
You got to figure he's only better now in terms of stronger, better conditioning. I agree. Tobias Harris playing well I like it when he's in the 7K range, so he's in play for me. And I'm with you with Westbrook and Beal. Just don't think I'm going to go there probably against this tough defense, even though Westbrook had a triple-double against them. And it's a bit of a conflict in my mind because Washington's coming in with 3 days rest. And you get Westbrook on 3 days rest, you feel pretty good about it. But on this big slate with all these stars, I probably won't go there. Keep in mind, one GPP option could be Davis Bertans. He's in that 4,600 price range on FanDuel. It's risky because he's so dependent on those three-pointers, but wouldn't surprise me if a guy like that is important on this slate in this game. All right, Coach, game 4, we've got Charlotte and Atlanta. And this is another one of the totals over 230. It's at 232. Atlanta favored by 6 at home. Atlanta, the number 2 offensive efficiency team in the NBA this year. Charlotte, surprisingly, has a top 10 pace. And so that's a couple of the variables that lead to that high total. So I am interested in this game. On the Atlanta side, I like how Trae Young played 40 minutes. Their last game out, had one of his big games, 31 points, 14 assists. And I like how he's cheaper on FanDuel today at only 9,400, so you could go there. Bogdanovich is probable, so keep that in mind if you're considering anybody else on the wing for Atlanta. I kind of like Kevin Huerter's price at 4,500 on both sites. On the Charlotte side, LaMelo has been really trending up. He got 30 minutes last game, almost had a triple-double.
Yeah.
But now he's getting finally priced up with the other guards, so I would probably only consider him on DraftKings at 6,000. And then Gordon Hayward is the other guy who I think should do well in this type of game. I like that he's in the 7K range. I could go with him. How about you?
I like this game. I think this is a really nice game to target. Like you said, one of the biggest surprises in the pace this year is how Charlotte has really turned up the the numbers. I mean, they've decided they're going to run, and I think LaMelo has a lot to do with that. And their guards are fresher. With Graham, Rozier, and Ball, those guys can play, and nobody's having to absorb some of those 44-minute games like Devonte Graham did last year. Rozier certainly stepped up to the plate, feeling the heat, I think, of LaMelo Ball there as well. Uh, you know, I I'm not going to go with Ball. I think his price now is out of that range of super value play, and so that eliminates him. But I like both Graham and Rozier. I can consider either one or both of them. I think they're playing great. Atlanta's backcourt is not world beaters defensively by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm with you. I also like Gordon Hayward here. I don't like the bigs. I think Atlanta's, got that covered with Capella and Collins and everybody. But, I would easily come out of this game with a combination of two of the three guys of Graham, Rozier, and Hayward. I mentioned multiple times early on that I thought Hayward, you were going to see a monster increase in his usage, and he is getting a monster increase. So he's a key guy. He's their go-to guy. I think they can keep this game close enough, and the pace can be there. There could be somewhat of a good old-fashioned shootout, and that I'm very interested in. I do have two plays on the Atlanta side for value, and we've got to, anybody could say, take Trae Young, take this. I mean, you can't take the most expensive guy on every team unless of something we can do without salary. But Trae tremendously tempting here, but again, you can't play all the top guys. But I do like both guys a lot that are the cheaper guys, Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter. They're both getting good minutes. They both can shoot. They both can rebound. They have size. So you can get value out of them. It's not hard for them at all to get 5, 6X, 7X in a game like this that the tempo is going to be up. And if Bogdanovich sits, Herter will play some minutes, but you're going to get a lot of run from Reddish and Hunter at that 2-3 spot. So I love those guys. Not going to pay up for Collins and Capella today with all of the different options. But, I see myself coming out of this game 2v2 and this being probably the most key game for me on the slate.
Excellent. All right. Next game is another 7:30 tip. It's a rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals last year, Boston and Miami. We certainly broke this matchup down quite a bit back in the summer in the bubble, had a lot of fun with that. And so now they meet up again in South Beach. Big injury news here, Coach, before you break this game down. Marcus Smart and Jeff Teague both questionable for Boston. So we might have another Peyton Pritchard opportunity. So with that unknown, how do you look at this game?
Well, Pritchard, when he's in there, he's a points per minute guy. I know he's a little dude and the whole 9 yards, but he gets those threes up. He finds the open guys. Just one of those guys as a coach you love because he just has a nose for the ball. He makes the right play. He's in the right spot. Really, I was stunned when they took him in the first round, to be honest with you, with all the point guards that they have. But, there it goes to show you. Look how he's paying off with some minutes. So for value, certainly has to continue to be in play. The only thing you can talk about with Boston, and we can talk about this every night, I'll have the same discussion every night until something changes. They run everything, like 96% of what they do through Tatum or Brown. And that's where it starts and ends. And really everybody else is somewhat of a mixture. Even if they're at full strength and have Smart and Teague and et cetera, they're still just totally dominated by Tatum and Brown from everything that they do out on the court, which brings those guys into play. How can you not consider those two guys or one of the two on any given night in any matchup? Now, Miami's a tough matchup at Miami, good defensive team. I get it. And, I'm not going to roll the dice with both of them, but you certainly have to consider one of the two. Tatum is a little crazy price-wise, so, Brown may be the option here, but there's just enough, everybody else is splitting minutes like crazy. Ogilvy, Williams, Tice, everybody's getting minutes, and that's a death sentence for DFS. But none of them are really doing anything from a usage standpoint. It's still all falling on Brown and Tatum's back. So even though Miami's a good defensive team, I think you need to look at and consider the two studs from Boston. You certainly can't afford both of them, but you have to consider them. On the Miami side, it's been interesting lately. You're getting a rotation of some good games from different guys, and those guys basically being Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Goran Dragic, and Bam Adebayo. Those, to me, are the four guys you have to look at and see financially where you can fit those guys in. I still think Hero's priced right. Dragic, who's coming off the bench, again, has been priced fairly and can have a very big blow up game, especially if Smart doesn't play and they're shorthanded defensively in the backcourt. Certainly going to watch that news because Hero and Dragic, one of the two of them are in play for me 100% if Smart sits, and are still considering them from there. If you're trying to squeeze in salary and you want to give Duncan Robinson a shot again, like you said, earlier with a guy, he's got to make his threes, like Bertans, the same thing. But he can make 7 threes, with his eyes closed. So, he's a guy that certainly can pay off salary at a very decent price. Now, the fact that I'm leaning to Embiid is probably going to eliminate Bam for me, but I think this is a really good spot for him. I love him in this matchup. I think, he's shown that he can really make some noise against Boston. So, for lineup 2, or another option, if I can't squeeze the Embiid money in there, Bam would be very closely ranked behind him.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Hero for me is certainly the guy in Miami I'm most interested in, especially on FanDuel where he's only 5,400. The one note is he's now a shooting guard. You remember?
Yeah, they moved that small forward thing made absolutely no sense.
That was strange, but different situation now, so keep that in mind. I also want to mention Olynyk on the Miami side. He was on our clipboard the other day when he went for 19
He's
and 8.
One of your all-time faves. He's got to
Yeah,
be.
I like Olynyk, and going up against his former team here. Unfortunately, he's priced up a little bit, but still in play for me. On the Boston side,
one thing, just not to interrupt you, that last game, by the way, they've been playing Precious Achiuwa a lot, and boy, he had a bad game. He looked like somebody that needed to be in the G League. He was out of position, out of everything. So I agree with you from the eyeballs of it. I think Olynyk will get more of those minutes back from Achiuwa.
yeah, and the interesting thing is Olynyk started the last game. We'll see if he starts tonight. He also did a lot of his damage on three-pointers, so it's not locked in that he's going to hit value. But yeah, you like him when he's hot and he's getting minutes. On the Boston side, I'll go back to Peyton Pritchard. He gave us 10x return in that last game against Toronto.
He did.
He's tremendous.
And that was off the bench when everybody was saying, bench him,
Right,
because
right.
he's not
We stuck with
starting.
him. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to him again if those guys are out. And then Tatum for me. I like his price is still in the 9K range, but it's gone down a tick. And look at the last 3 games. His field goal attempts, 24, 22, and 19. And that gave him 40 actual points against Toronto last time out. So I'm ready to.
No defensive slouch, by the way.
That's right. That's right. So Tatum is in play for me. All right. The other 7:30 tip-off is Utah against New York in the Big Apple. This is a lower total game of 214. Utah coming off that embarrassing loss to Brooklyn in the front end of the back-to-back last night. They got
Told
smoked.
you I didn't feel the jazz. Everybody
didn't feel the jazziness.
Why wasn't I feeling jazzy?
By 34 against Kyrie and the bench guys.
They were playing the blues, not the jazz, is what they were playing.
Yeah, so they get to try the other side of New York here. I like their chances better to wake up. None of their guys played more than 30 minutes, so they should be fine. I like Conley here. If you want to play somebody from Utah, we've seen guards do well against the New York backcourt. Not sure I'd go anywhere else, though, because this should be a slower pace game. On the New York side, plenty of moving parts. We've got Alec Burks and Ntilikina out. Reggie Bullock questionable, Kevin Knox and Dennis Smith Jr. probable. These guys aren't huge impacts on usage, but wanted to note that what I'm looking at here are potentially a couple nicks because on FanDuel, they're priced really well. Elfrid Payton's only 5,300. RJ Barrett is 6,500. He's had some massive games lately at that price. And then, of course, Randall, but he's unfortunately over 9K on both sites. So not quite as excited about him as I usually am. But I could definitely play Payton and or RJ Barrett. How about you?
I'll be brief since we have so many games today. I just don't like this game. Tibbs is up to his old stuff. He's playing guys a billion minutes. I mean, there are games where, Randall and Barrett and such are getting 40 minutes. So, that's always makes it tempting. It's just, I can't imagine Utah is going to come out back-to-back nights and just completely lay an egg like that. I think they'll, I respect Snyder. I think, he'll at least get him to come out and show some effort. But the total here, the pace, Gobert's defense inside, Mitch Rob's defense inside, at protecting the rim. I just hate this game, and I'm going to steer clear of it.
All right, well, let's turn to the 8 o'clock games then. Detroit and Milwaukee, and this is another rematch from Monday. Milwaukee won it by 10. You liked Giannis in that one, and he was terrific. Will you pay up for him again here?
No, with all these guys and the builds, I don't think it's wise to pay up for more than one guy in the big money. And like I said, Joel's sort of my guy tonight. I can't, as much as Giannis is awesome, as much as I think he could crush in this game again, it's just, it makes it very difficult to build out and not, unless there's a guy or two at the very end that value opens up, where you can go there. But you got to be careful. I mean, a couple of nights ago, I had a ton of the Giannis night. I had a bunch of guys like him that went berserk, but I had two guys that just, single digits and you're dead. So you can't always go, stars and scrubs and expect the scrubs to always pay value, and that that can sink you. So I don't want to put myself in that type of scenario here. I think there's some good plays from this game. I think there's certainly some guys you could dial up. My fear is, as opposed to the way I felt the other night, I don't think this game will stay as tight as the other one did. I feel more comfortable that this could be the blowout where all the key guys sit the fourth quarter. The way it's set up the 2 days ago was different than this. I think this has a little bit more of a blowout feel to it, and for that, I'm going to pass.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to pass the Milwaukee side. Dante DiVincenzo is a nice price on FanDuel as a shooting guard at 4,800, but you pay up a little bit to get Hero. So I don't know if I'll go there. On the Detroit side, I should have mentioned the injury news. Killian Hayes is out. So, right. There's going to be some interest in Derrick Rose, maybe even DeLon Wright. But their prices aren't, anything special in terms of value. And DeLon Wright, his usage, his minutes have been inconsistent. So it's pretty risky. And then you've got Blake Griffin coming back into the lineup. He didn't play in that last game for rest. So he takes away a little bit from Grant. Josh Jackson's questionable, so it's just a lot up in the air. And it's Milwaukee. They're strong at defense again. No surprise. It is a faster pace here, so somebody from Detroit could certainly pay off. But right now, not knowing if Josh Jackson's going to start, will Derrick Rose start? I'm not ready to commit to anybody. But stay tuned with us for any final decisions on that game.
And D Rose, I will say though, D Rose, you got to consider just on the fact that, he really has split the games with Killian Hayes. So the fact that Hayes is already ruled out, if you're going to dial up D Rose, I still don't think his price is that great though. And right. That's the part that bothers me, but he's dangerous tonight. There's no doubt.
He is dangerous. Yep. All right. The next one, not much dangerous in a game with OKC. Certainly not high scoring. We're not worried about that. The total is 213.5. as they play the Pelicans. And, this is a rematch. Recently, New Orleans beat OKC 113-80. So they didn't even combine for 200 points. New Orleans won it easily. And let's again remind everybody with the Pelicans, different team this year, Coach Van Gundy, they are strong defensively now, number 5 on the season. They're a much slower pace. They're 26th, and they haven't really clicked offensively yet in terms of efficiency. They're only 23. So I'm not really excited about this game at all in general. There are a couple prices I kind of like, though. Bledsoe is still cheap on FanDuel at 5,300. Ball is a fair price. He almost triple doubled against these guys.
Yeah.
The only news on the OKC side is that Pokusevski's out, so you might get a little bit more minutes and usage for Isaiah Roby, who had one good game earlier when he got some minutes, but only on DraftKings, maybe in a GPP, but I don't think I'll go there. So this is likely a pass game for me. Maybe Bledsoe on FanDuel.
Well, my stance in Thunder games this year. Very, very seldom am I going to have exposure to their games. I think every single game, has the potential to go under the total just because of their pace and really their dependence on just one person, being Shea, who's chucking and ducking like a madman out there. But doesn't always make everything, that's for sure. And also the potential of them always getting blown out. I think they are 10 to 12 points the worst team in the league. And I just don't, I don't know how you feel comfortable on any given night feeling you're going to get a good hard push of big minutes. And why spend up for an Ingram or Zion or even Ball in this scenario when you could be getting limited minutes in a blowout in a low scoring game. So I'm not going to pay up here. I'm not comfortable with it. And really on the Thunder side, man, it's just they're atrocious. And so only time I'll look at Thunder games, or if it's a 2, 3, 4 game slate, and you're looking to fill some squares in, but no interest for me here whatsoever.
Agreed. All right, the next game is a 9 o'clock tip between Toronto and Phoenix, and this game has a lot of exciting star players, but total is 219.5. Both teams top 10 in defensive efficiency. Talk to me about this one.
I like this game. I know the number's low, but I do feel you can roster some guys on the cheap here and feel pretty good about it. I think, one guy that is a sneaky play, GPP play mostly, but you got to talk about it, is Aaron Baines. Didn't exactly feel like he got, the big end of the stick, if you will. I don't even know what that means for Phoenix for last year. I think he got the short end of the stick, I guess,
Right.
is what I'm trying to say. But, so I think he'll have a little extra motivation in this game. And, he's dirt cheap. So just somebody to keep in mind. Siakam, I think, is a playable entity in this game just because he is playing at a higher level, playing better. Lowry and Van Vliet are expensive. That's the only problem. And Chris Paul can D it up. So I'm not going to go there. But, I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to play one of those guys. Toronto got torn up from, like we said earlier, on the defensive side the last game, which was unusual. So I don't expect Nurse to come out and, allow them to lay another huge defensive egg here. So I'm not going to pay up for Booker or Ayton. I think you can consider Mikal Bridges or even a Chris Paul from a price standpoint. I think that, they're good fill-in guys for a game that is going to probably go pretty under-owned, but, should have a decent enough pace and strong enough players that it can be a competitive game. So I would say don't be afraid to roster a guy or two from this game, and, don't let that number intimidate you.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I'm just not thrilled about it. You could go to Fred VanVleet. That's probably the one Raptor I might play. On the Phoenix side, I just don't like the split usage with Paul and Booker and Ayton. And their prices are, they're getting there, but they're not at a point yet where I'm excited to play any of them with any amount of confidence. So this game is probably going to be a pass for me. The next game, we finish with some strength here in terms of potential high scoring situations. We've got the Clippers and Golden State tipping off at 10 Eastern. And the Clippers are coming in off the back-to-back close loss to San Antonio, where Kawhi missed that three to tie. The total here is 230. Clippers only favored by 1.5, which I find quite strange. I would have thought they'd be favored by more than that.
Well, that has to mean that George or Kawhi or both are sitting.
Well, I was just checking, and Paul George has been questionable, and so he is still questionable as we record this. Kawhi, there was talk that he might rest since it is a back-to-back, but apparently he's not on the injury report right now. So it looks like they're both going to play.
That line seems out of whack then.
I think it's out of whack.
If they both play, I can't imagine that that's the number.
I agree. So we're certainly going to have to follow that. Unfortunately, it's a 10 o'clock tip, so we're not going to have that news probably before the slate starts.
I'll tell you, though, it's safe, Andrew. If you want exposure to this game, which I think is very wise choice, it's a big number, don't be afraid to use that flex spot and roster one of these guys, Kawhi or Paul George or whatever. Spend the money, have the spot locked down. Don't set yourself so you can only switch in one position. But if you leave your options open there, you can get a really good late swap switch that can make a massive difference. Because let's face it, if George or Kawhi sit, the other one is somebody you probably should play. So, and I can't imagine they're both playing. That's just my gut feeling at this time. But it's if you're going to use that late swap and you haven't done it, this is a perfect spot to do it.
I agree. You could play one of them or use somebody from the other game, Chicago-Sacramento, that we'll talk about. A lot of good payoff options there, or at least a couple. So I agree with you there. If one of them does sit, I like Luke Kennard's price, and he just played 38 minutes last night. So
I'll tell you, man, he was an under-the-radar pickup for them, and he can score.
He can. So he's finally, getting involved, and here's a value option on this slate. It's been tricky to find one, but he's in the mix for me, as well as Batum, who just keeps cruising along. 36 minutes last night, almost had a double-double, and he's only 4,400 on FanDuel. So Batum is still in play for me. On the Golden State side, Steph followed up that 62-point performance with almost a triple-double, 39 and 8. Don't know if I'll go there around 10,000. The guy I like a little bit more on Golden State is actually Kelly Oubre.
I love him. I don't sleep on Oubre, man, because his stat, we talked about this, I think, prior to the slate the other day. His numbers, DFS-wise, have been decent, and he shot the ball like absolute garbage. So once that starts equaling itself out, he is a great value play at that number. I really like Oubre tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching a couple games ago, and he finally made a three. The bench went berserk, and so he got that monkey off his back. And then last game, he went 4 for 6 on three-pointers.
Yeah.
So I like his potential here, and he's only 5,300 on FanDuel, 55 on DraftKings. Great GPP option, in my opinion.
I agree.
Anything else from this game for you?
Well, I mean, Wiseman at his price, again, centers, he only can take so many, and I know he's, splitting some time and stuff, but man, that dude can put up some fantasy points quickly. And if you notice in blowout games, he's the only key guy that still gets the extra minutes because they want to get him the experience. So you can actually get some free 5, 6, 7 mop-up minutes from Wiseman as well.
Excellent. All right, Coach, one game to go. I'll let you break it down. It's Chicago against Sacramento. Another 10 o'clock tip. Total just under 230 at 229.5. Chicago coming in after a nice win against Portland last night, 111 to 108. So the only really relevant piece of injury news here that I'm saying is that Halliburton is questionable for Sacramento, so he might come back into the mix.
Yeah.
But high total late game here. I'd like to get a little exposure to this one. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very viable choice. Neither one of these teams is burning it up on the defensive side, and both played a decent enough pace. You know, for me, this is one of those scenarios where you've got two guys again that deserve looked at every night, and that's Kobe White and Zach Levine. They both got it done last night. Kobe was terrific through most of the game. Levine turned it up towards the end, but I think they're both in play against a just very average defensive backcourt from Sacramento. I'm not going to go on this big of a slate with both of them, but I think you can pick your choice there depending financially, and positionality wise who you can afford. But I like the fact of having either Kobe White or Zach Levine in that late game. I think that's a really good comfort choice for either one of them. I don't want the mixture right now at the bigs. I know Carter did decent, but Gafford's getting minutes, and Porter has really stepped up at times. Young's starting to get back in the mix. So I don't quite feel like those guys are deserving a spot on this big of a slate. But I do love the Kobe Levine combo, and I think that they're both very playable. You've got on the other side with Sacramento, it's very bizarre because there's certainly, everybody's heard about, Fox and Bagley's dads are saying they want traded and all this social media baloney and noise, but it's a distraction and it's a pain in the neck. And I'm sure that, they're not enjoying that. Again, I don't think Walton ever does a good job with his teams. His teams always, guys are mad at each other. There's just not continuity. He coaches that old style where he wants to try to pit the, guys against guys, and it just doesn't make any sense. I don't like his style, and I just don't like where this team's at now. Fox is extremely expensive. I played him last time. He just never seems to just absolutely crunch his number. I mean, it seems like you're always chewing your nails for him to get to value at 5 or 6x. So that scares me a little. Yes, this is a great matchup for him. It doesn't get much better, but I don't know if I want to go there from the price side. The guy that I think is most dangerous and another fair price guy, although he's a little higher than I'd like, is Richaun Holmes. I mean, I think Sacramento sort of realized that Whiteside somewhat stinks, and Holmes is the more reliable guy that's getting, I think, the majority of those DFS points in crunch time minutes. So he becomes an option if you're trying to fit that last spot and you're financially trying to squeeze somebody in. I mean, Barnes is getting the minutes, he's getting the usage, and that's worth at least an eyeball on it. Haven't felt great about Hill to this point. He's had some stretches where he's hot, but he also has stretches where he just completely disappears. And if Halliburton's back in the mix, then I'm not interested.
Excellent. So for me, I see the attraction to Holmes. I'm a little more interested in Fox than you, but I am thinking more about cash. It's 7,800 on FanDuel. I like that price with this matchup and the pace.
Yeah.
Chicago #2 in pace. Sacramento above average as well.
Yeah.
Both teams below average defensively. And then those guards are in play for me with Chicago. And Otto Porter, still a decent price on FanDuel. He is getting priced up, but you could consider him there. And I am going to get probably at least one guy from this game because I think this is a chance to be pretty high scoring. So fun slate here. Before we wrap up, Coach, and you can take us out tonight since you've got the record button. But just want to invite folks, if you want to grab our lineups, you can do that as a member. 2 ways to do that. If you want to take advantage of that amazing offer from BetUS, sign up on betus.com.pa. Promo code Coach Talk, all one word, $149. And then let us know on Twitter that you've done that. You can find us at DFS Coach Talk. Then we'll send you an email, get you into our Discord. That's where we give out the lineups 30 minutes before lock, our full FanDuel hybrid lineups, a GPP lineup, the DraftKings coach's clipboard, and then a full Yahoo lineup. If you're not interested in sports betting, still pay that $149 on our website, dfscoachtalk.com. Jump in with us. You're going to be a member all the way until April 1st. Get our lineups every slate and every sport. We cover every NFL slate, every PGA tournament, and we've got MLB once that starts up as well. So any questions, again, on Twitter, check us out at DFS Coach Talk. You can find the coach at JOESARVADI. You can find me at Language Olympic. Coach, I'll let you wrap it up.
Awesome. Again, a big announcement for us is we are going to start going live stream tomorrow afternoon. So we expect to get that up and kicked off. The live stream will be on there. We encourage you to join in on YouTube. Check us out. You can ask questions during the live stream itself. A lot more interactive. We'll have the player news more up to date as we're closer, to lock time. And then as soon as we're done with the live stream, it will immediately post just like these podcasts post, so you can still watch it, recorded if that's what you prefer before lock. But just one other thing I wanted to mention, you get hot, you get cold at times, and it's a definite marathon, not a sprint. We've got a long 6-year record of being extremely successful. And when we get hot, you want to be on board. So I feel a hot streak coming. I think we've got our arms around things well. I think the live stream piece is going to be a nice added piece for letting everybody get more involved. And then, we just encourage you, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. Definitely subscribe, and then hit that little alarm button so that you get an alert every time we're going live. It'll tell you we're going live. Andrew and I both did a couple little sample ones. I wanted to keep it up because I thought it was funny, but he wouldn't let me. And but we got those. So definitely follow us up on that tomorrow. And again, if you want to catch it live, do that. If not, then you can still tune in YouTube and check it out. We'll also be uploading everything to all of our places where you can get all of the audio, whether it's Spotify, iHeart, Podbean, we're everywhere. So check that out as well. We really appreciate it. DFSCoachDoc.com, and we'd love to have you join the family. Again, that $149 deal through BetUS or just through us that goes all the way through to April 1st is really our best deal of the year. So take advantage of that still while you can, and we'll look forward to hopefully coming to you live tomorrow and taking it from there. So great job today, Andrew. We really appreciate everybody listening in, and we will join you again tomorrow live as we look to crush it in NBA DFS.